Yes, we're streaming. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. Listen, guys, what an absolute wild time to be alive in the world right now. It does look like the Ukrainian armed forces in and around the town of Pokrovsk. It does look like they are hours away from collapse. We're going to be talking about that, and I'm gonna be sharing with you guys the war map. I'm going to let you guys see how critical that situation actually is. And look, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people are commenting on mainstream media. They're saying, listen, the Ukrainians, they're defeating the Russians. It's it's the Russians that are on the back foot. Each and every day, the Russians are taking more ground. Each and every day in the United Kingdom, another calamity happens. It turns out today as well, and I will just let me get this up real quick, guys. Turns out today, so you know how there was the arrest of the Afghan man the other day in after the Afghan man killed the dog walker in what was it in Hillingdon? Was it Hillingdon? I think. Today, there've been more Afghans causing trouble, and they've been arrested. So it does look like that there's been more arrests. Armed police have had to turn up. This is a part and parcel now, ladies and gentlemen, whether you believe it or not. This is a part and parcel of living in the United Kingdom. We went out with the girls today. And I was just watching our backs all the time, and you can't relax. You really can't relax. And you know what, guys? Maybe that's me being prejudiced. Maybe that's been me hypersensitive. Not hypersensitive. Hyper aware. Maybe that's me being hyper aware. But you know what? I think it's better to be hyper aware than laid on the floor with an Afghan man stood over the top of you, allegedly, because that's what's happening in the United Kingdom. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about the situation in Ukraine. Like I said earlier on, it does look like the Ukrainians are hours away from collapse in the key town of Pokrovsk. Now, Pokrovsk itself, and I'll come on to this in a minute, but Pokrovsk itself it's a very key town. It's a major rail hub in that region. I think you've got two lines going in, and you've got two lines coming out, going north-south. So a lot of the stuff that gets transported in and around Ukraine is transported by rail. Now, if you control those rail hubs, you kind of control the transport. Also, that town of Pokrovsk, that is kind of like the last, that really is, guys. The town of Pokrovsk is the last stronghold before you get to the River Dnipro. There's nothing else in that region. It's literally just open fields. Yes, of course, the Ukrainians will mount a fighting withdrawal, but at best, it's going to slow the Russians down. So from now on, ladies and gentlemen, this actually may happen while we're on the live stream. It may actually get announced while we're on the live stream. So I am going to be talking to you guys about what we know so far about the encirclement of Ukraine's Pokrovsk. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you live in the United Kingdom, you're thinking, why does that bother me? Well, every inch of ground that the Ukrainians lose is another inch closer to British boots on the ground in Ukraine. And I know that, the government are saying, we've got no plans to do this. We do not have plans to do this. Yeah. Do you know what that means? It means they don't have plans to do it yet. What it means is, of course, they've made plans. Of course, they've got deployment plans. They came out what was it? Last week or something, and they was talking about plans to expand this, whereby British troops would go into Ukraine as a peacekeeping force if there was a ceasefire, which there's clearly not going to be. But look, I think those plans. I mean, look, guys, look. Let's just be honest. When those people are in that planning ops room, believe me, I've done enough of it myself. When people are in those operations rooms and they're planning, like, right, Sean, I need you to plan a potential operation for X, Y, and Z. You're like, right, okay, mate, there you go, done. Right? Do we think that the British military and the coalition and the Europeans do not have a plan to get boots on the ground in Ukraine? They absolutely do. It's going to be expensive, it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be fast. That's what's coming, guys. And every time that the Ukrainians lose an inch of ground, that means that the Russians are closer to Europe, that means that British boots on the ground, European boots on the ground gets closer. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. Can you do me a real big favor? Can you guys do me a real big favor and like, comment, subscribe, share, bell notification, all those things that help this channel grow, guys. Like, hit the buttons down below, guys. It really helps me out when you guys do that. Also, let me know how the sound and video quality is. I've had a jig around with my camera because I know this morning it was a little bit bad, the video footage. What I do know is if you're watching this video later on in the day, after the video is uploaded, it will get uploaded in 4K. So I'm gonna get you guys. I'm gonna get some comments and then we will jump over. So Templar Matt is saying, "Great British strike, no going to work for 1 week." Templar Matt, did you follow me like a year ago when I was talking about this? Like a year ago, look, guys, the time for this is over. It's not going to work now. It is not going to work. Doesn't matter anymore. And look, guys, over a year ago, what I said is a Great British strike isn't going to work. People have got bills to pay. People have got bills to pay. Like, people will think this, right? Well, if I don't strike, maybe I'll get a promotion at work. Maybe my boss will favor me and give me a bit more money, What we need is en masse everybody. What we need en masse is everybody closing down their, everybody closing down whatever job they do and seeking welfare, And again, it comes down to financial preparedness. Like, are you financially prepared to weather the storm? And I would speculate a lot of people are living hand to mouth. Yeah, I would speculate a lot of people are living hand to mouth. Look, guys, what's coming? These strikes here, I don't think they're going to be effective because not everybody will do it. I think it's in the right direction. It's just 12 months late. And if 100% of people do it in the United Kingdom, yes, of course it will be successful. But what I think everybody needs to do in the UK is just stop, quit work, and get yourselves on, go and claim unemployment or whatever. That's what people need to do, really. Because, how can they tax people when nobody's working? And let's just face it, guys, there's a lot of people in this country who are not working. There's a lot, honestly, guys, I get up in the morning, I was up at 6 this morning. I am absolutely shattered. I'm just dealing with so much. And I pay tax on it. So, and for the pleasure of me getting up every morning, dealing with a load of shit, right? People late, people not giving me documents. I'm having to chase people up. I'm having to chase people up in different countries. They're on a different time zone. And it's just, and for the pleasure of doing all that, when I've done all of that, and I've got, and I get some, and then I have to chase invoices up. And after all of that, when I get my invoices paid, I'm like, all right, the government I have to give some money to the government now for what exactly? Yeah, here, Rachel, why am I giving you this again? Can you explain why I'm giving you this again, Rachel? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And then guys, I'm going on a little side quest here. Rachel Reeves. She's fantastic, isn't she? I mean, I think she's the new gift that keeps giving. So Rachel Reeves has been pushing for these new checks and balances. The government have been pushing for these new checks and balances, the renters reform bill. Turns out they've been pushing for these renters reform bills, and the government are claiming they didn't understand them because they're not following their own rules, which is kind of funny. James is saying Trump just resumed nuclear tests after over 50 years. Yeah, so he's not okay, so we spoke about this earlier on the live stream. The United States have not yet resumed those tests. I gave about an hour live stream on this earlier on this morning. we've got, you know, I in my speculation, I'm thinking this is a bargaining chip, guys. I do. I think this is a bargaining chip. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back on track. Let's get back on track, okay? We are talking about Ukraine right now. Oh, and Prince Andrew is not Prince Andrew anymore. No, he's not, is he? He's just, so he's not Prince Andrew anymore. He's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. So now he's not Prince Andrew. He's just Andy Windsor. Where's Andy? Andy? Do you know Andy? Andy F? No, Big Andy. No. Big Andy. No, Andy Windsor. Oh yeah, I know Andy Windsor. Yeah, he's just Andy Windsor now. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share with you now the war map that I use, and I'm just going to give you guys a quick Ukraine update. I've not done this for a while. I mean, I've not really shared these maps for a while, so I'll just share this map right now with you guys, okay? So this is the town. This is the town in question. If you guys can see my cursor, let me know. So this is a town in question here, guys, in the middle. This Pokrovs. Now, if we want to zoom in, can we see them? Yeah. So let me see if I can zoom in a bit more. Yeah. So where my cursor is here, you've got the two rail tracks. You've got one coming from the south. You've got one coming from the north. Now, those are key. And then you've got the two roads, sorry, going one north and one south. Now, that is a key location. And if you think about the pincer movement, where you come from the north, you come from the south, you come north, south, north, south, north, south, and then at some point you've gone past that town, past that city, and then you close that pincer up, and the people of Pokrovs are trapped. So what's going to happen here is these guys are going to keep pushing west. These guys are going to start pushing north. Once this main supply route, MSR, is blocked, that's pretty much game over for the people in Pokrovs. So right now, what I would suggest everybody in Pokrovs does is accept your loss and get on that road and evacuate as quickly as possible. So let's zoom out. Now, what I was saying is you've got this like a triangular region here. So we're looking at Pokrovs, which is here. There's nothing now. If Pokrovs falls, there's absolutely nothing to stop the Russians pushing all the way up to the River Dnipro. Yes, of course, you know, moving through this area here north of Pavlograd, that's going to be a little bit different. But what I think would happen is if Pokrovs falls, which, guys, look, and this could happen within hours. Like by the time you're watching this live stream, or by the time we finish this live stream, the town of Pokrovs may have already fallen. They're calling it a city. It's not a city. It's a town. So that could have already fallen. Now, if you think you've got Zaporizhia, you've got the nuclear power plant at Zaporizhia. In Dnipro, you've got heavy industry, heavy steel, heavy manufacturing in Dnipro. That is the prize if the Russians can take Pokrovs, because if they take Pokrovs, what's going to happen is the Russian forces are going to slowly start pushing up from the north, and everybody's going to start pushing. I think they're going to use this road as a handrail. And I don't think they're going to exploit much further north. Remember, when the Russians had their 2022 invasion of Ukraine, they really overexploited. Let me give you where we are in context to Ukraine in general. So where are we? Okay, so you've got Kiev, you've got Ukraine, you've got Kiev, you've got Belarus, you've got Poland, you've got Lithuania, you've got Kaliningrad. So that's where we are, guys. You've got the Black Sea, you've got Sevastopol, and you've got Crimea. Sorry, I just want to give you a little look around the map. So when we talk about this little town here, Pokrovs, that is the last fortress area. I was speaking to a guy not too many days ago, last week, and he'd just come back from Pokrovs, and he was saying the situation is really bad, but the Ukrainians know how key that town is. So if the Russians, and look, guys, I'm showing you the war map here. This is from the 29th of last month, and what I'm going to do in a minute, I'm going to fast forward this, and you guys can see how much ground the Russians are taking. So for everybody who's saying, you know, all the people who are saying, yeah, the Russians are losing, the Russians are about to collapse. Absolutely fine. Keep saying that. You keep saying that while the Russians are taking more and more ground. And then when the Russians are at Dnipro, they're like, yeah, the Russians are going to collapse any day. Right, okay, they're in Lviv. Yeah, but any day they're going to collapse. Okay, they've just crossed over to Poland. Yeah, but any day they're going to collapse. Okay, they're in Krakow. Yeah, but any day they're going to collapse. Okay, they're in France. They're literally firing missiles over the United Kingdom. Yeah, but any day they're going to collapse. Really? Really? Is that the case? Look, guys, and I've said it many times, the Ukrainians can't hold the Russians back right now. All this kit and equipment, what's happening right now in Ukraine is people are making money. And people, you know, the US president, I can't remember what his name was, he said, when war becomes profitable, you won't see the end of war, or something like that. I'm gonna build on that, and I'm gonna correct him. When prolonging war becomes profitable, you won't see the end of war. Because if this war could have been over in 48 hours, 36 hours, and people could have profited real quick making that money, that's what would have happened. What's the problem is, winning a war is not profitable. Supplying weapons, supplying drones, supplying consumable munitions, that is profitable. And people want to prolong this as long as possible, guys. That's the reality. So, right, let me zoom in, ladies and gentlemen. Let me zoom in again. Okay, so you've got this town here, Pokrovs. That's the key location. This was the date up here on the top left of the screen, 29th of the 9th. I'm just going to fast forward this. I'm going to fast forward this. Every time I click the mouse, it's going to be a day. So you can see how quickly, and if you imagine that being done all over the front line, you can see how quickly the Russians are moving day by day. You can see how quickly the Russians are actually moving. And there is no stopping this onslaught, guys. You know, all these people are saying, you know, they can't keep going. I can remember when here, this Vuldahar, this little town here, I remember watching the exact same thing on the war map. You know, the Russians came in from the north. They came in from the south. They encircled it. Then they closed it off. What else have we got? Where else have we got? And all these locations here, you know, this is what the Russians do. You know, and they're very good at it. And here in the West, we have no idea how to stop this because we don't have the manpower, we don't have the capacity, and we don't have the experience now that the Russians have in fighting this war. Yes, of course. Absolutely, of course. When the NATO forces get deployed, you're going to see a lot of these Russian forces get pushed back. You will. You'll see a lot of these Russian forces get pushed back on this front line. But look, they're not going to get pushed all the way out. And then over time, when, you know how you get these people saying, yeah, British military, NATO military, I'd put five Russian conscripts to every one British, you know, every one NATO troop. All right, okay, well, that's all well and good. All right. The Russians have the ability to throw that many men at you. And then once all the NATO troops have been burnt out through time, through attrition, that's when the Russian troops keep pushing forwards. So that's the reality of that situation, guys, in Ukraine. So in fact, I'm going to close this down now, guys. The map, I mean. So if anybody wants me to come back and explain any more about what's happening here, I mean, look at that, guys. That is like, yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy talk right now. That is crazy talk. It's a matter of hours. It's a matter of hours before this falls. I really think it's a matter of hours now, guys. Right, let me jump back over, guys, and get onto the chat, and then we'll continue. Right, ladies and gentlemen, James. Oh, hang on, I've not got the chat on. James is saying Putin's got hundreds of thousands of soldiers in reserve. Surely he could blitz it and end it in a week. You're right, Sean. They don't want this war to end. It's like there's a timetable, a plan being worked. Yeah, from both sides now, you know, from both sides, from the Russian side or the Ukrainians. In fact, hang on. No, hang on. I may have an update. No, I don't. Yeah, so as James is saying, Putin's got, I would say he's got more than that. Look, the way the Russians work, it's totally different. So sorry, James, I'm going to take your comment down because you can't see my beautiful face. So the way the Russian army works, it's not the same as the British army or a NATO army. It's just not the same. It really isn't. And like, if you're an analyst and you're trying to compare these things, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Yes, they're both round fruit, similar size, but they're very different. They're very different fruits. So yes, the Russian military, men dressed in camouflage clothes with rifles, more or less. Yeah, are we okay with that definition? NATO army, men dressed in camouflage clothes with rifles. Fair, apples and oranges. Okay, we got. No, it's totally different. The Russians, they use conscripts. Now, what they do to use those conscripts, they have like a 5-kilometer buffer zone. So the front line in Ukraine, they will have a 5-kilometer buffer zone. And that will be populated with conscripts, with poorly paid, poorly motivated conscripts. It's not the conscript's job to fight and to take positions. It's the conscript's job to slow down the opposing force, not to stop them, to slow them down. So you can imagine now. I don't know. Let me think of an example. Let's go foot drills. You can imagine you've got a platoon of NATO soldiers walking through open countryside. So, like, I don't know, platoon, like, I don't know, depending how you're rolling, like 24, 26, 30, whatever. Call it 30, it's easy numbers. And I know people are going to say, but Sean, an actual platoon is three 8-man sections and a platoon HQ. Yeah, I get that. I understand how platoon's made up. Let's just use the numbers 30. It's just easier, You might have a dog handler. You might have a drone operator. You might have other people in the platoon HQ. So let's just say it's 30 people, all right? Just for argument's sake. It makes things easier when I'm doing Raven Maths. And I love Raven Maths, guys. I do Raven Maths. I think Raven Maths should be the new mathematical standard for everything. So you've got 30 guys now. Let's say they're 2 up. So they've got 2 sections up front, 1 section at the rear. They're moving in a pyramid triangle formation. You get 2 Russian conscripts, start shooting at them with a belt-fed PKM or whatever. What's that platoon going to do? Well, they're all gonna fan out. They're going to form baselines. They are going to put down suppressing fire. They're going to shout fire control orders. They're going to try and locate the enemy. They're going to shout, they're going to be trying organizing themselves for an attack. If those 2 guys run off, that platoon is going to be bogged down for at least an hour because they're not going to want to get up. They don't know if there's a sniper. It's going to take time. So it's not the conscript's job to take on a NATO military. It's the conscript's job to slow them down. Yes, the conscripts are poorly trained. They're poorly motivated. They're poorly armed. They're poorly equipped. But you know what? It doesn't matter because that's how they use them. Yes, the Russians have some really well-trained units, some highly motivated guys, some really professional soldiers. And it's those professional soldiers' responsibility to surge forward and to do the striking operations. And then they'll pull back and move the conscripts in. And in that way, they're protecting their highly trained soldiers and not only, but the poorly trained conscripts, they're the ones who become they're the one who becomes casualties. So then you don't lose anything. And it's all about time, ladies and gentlemen. This war in Ukraine is all about time. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are just joining me for the first time, can you do me a real big favor? And I know I don't say this enough. In fact, I've not even said it yet. Can you guys I have said it. I remember I've said it, but I haven't said this. We are double streaming this evening. Do you know why? Because I've been banned off TikTok. Yes, I have, good sir. I have been banned off TikTok. I've been banned on TikTok, guys, so I'm only double streaming this evening. So can you guys do me a real big favor and like, comment, subscribe, share my stuff, ladies and gentlemen, because every hour, every minute, every second, every kilometer, every inch that the Russians push forwards, that brings us closer to getting British boots on the ground in Ukraine. And I kind of don't want to see that. Donna Hogan is saying Russia eyes Cuba and Venezuela for nuclear deployment to pressure Washington. So this is literally what we had in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Look, guys, can you remember? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, right? You know when things make the back of your hair stick up? Can you guys remember when I was talking about I've talked about it quite a few times. I'm not going to do it again. At the end of the crescendo, I guess, of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Nikolai Khrushchev turned around his ships that were carrying nuclear missiles that were on the way to Cuba. You guys remember me talking about that, right? Yeah. 1962. That's when it happened, guys. 1962. Good old Vladimir Putin was 11, I think. 10, 11, 12. You know, he was at that age. At that age, that is a very impressionable age. So I would speculate that Vladimir Putin is wanting a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. But I believe, I don't think Vladimir Putin would back down. I think Vladimir Putin will continue to send those ships, and Vladimir Putin would then, if somebody took those ships out, Vladimir Putin would strike. Remember, you've got to understand the history of these world leaders. You've got to understand what makes these people tick. You've got to understand what the world was like when they were growing up. You've got to understand where these world leaders grew up. And, you know, these things are not difficult to do. It's not difficult to Google where did Putin grow up, Putin's career path. And then, what was happening around that time in the world? And all this stuff starts to fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. Philip Gray's blocked my beautiful face. I'm going to get up here. So Philip Gray is saying, I'm going to do some dips. Philip Gray is saying the size of Russia is ridiculous. It is, guys. It's massive. They are totally self-sufficient. They have a different mentality when it comes to the art of war. Absolutely. But they are poorly armed and poorly motivated. But they have numbers. So, yeah. What I will just add on that, Philip Gray, is they have highly motivated soldiers and they have highly armed soldiers. They're just mostly Spetsnaz units. Spetsnaz, direct translation, is Special Forces. So that's the reality, guys. That is the reality that we're moving forwards to right now. And it does look like the closer that these guys get, British boots on the ground are going to get sucked in. Remember, we already know that there's a plan to get British boots on the ground in Ukraine. So I would speculate that there's already a chance, there's already a plan to get British boots on the ground in Ukraine in the event that Ukraine collapses. And look, ladies and gentlemen, it would not surprise me if this happened while we was on the, it would not surprise me, guys, if this happened while we were on the live stream. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what do we know so far about the encirclement of Pokrovsk? So, I'm reading you guys this now from an article from the Kiev, is it the Kiev Post? I think it's the Kiev Post. Oh, no, sorry, the Kiev Independent. Russian soldiers have advanced further into the city of Pokrovsk, threatening not only to take the city, but to complete a larger encirclement of the surrounding areas, as independent analysts and commanders report serious deterioration of the Ukrainian position in the area. The defense of the major city in Donetsk Oblast, which has held out for over a year of heavy fighting as one of the main hotspots of the front line, looks to have begun falling apart as Russian soldiers in their hundreds have broken into the city limits, spreading in all directions. According to the Ukrainian military, 11,000 Russian troops. Guys, let me just, I'll read this paragraph and then I'll jump back to that. According to the Ukrainian military, 11,000 Russian troops have been concentrated around Pokrovsk in an attempt to surround the city, with President Vladimir Zelensky telling journalists on the 27th of October that Russian forces outnumber the Ukrainian defenders 8-1. Okay, right. You guys are not understanding this. Maybe you guys are, but the people of the mainstream, the military planners, anybody who's saying anything differently to me, they don't understand what I'm talking about. Listen to these numbers, guys, okay? This is from the Ukrainian military, so take that as, take that however you want. 11,000 Russian troops have been concentrated around Pokrovsk. 11,000, okay? The British military can only field 19,000 infantry. Do you understand the numbers now, guys? So do you understand the numbers involved? So the British military would only be able to defend Pokrovsk. That's it. And this is one town of many. I'll jump back. In fact, let me share this with you again, guys. So 11,000 soldiers have been deployed to 11,000 Russian soldiers have been deployed to the town of Pokrovsk. So 11,000 soldiers around this area here, guys. That little area. Look there, guys. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out. 11,000 soldiers around that area, yeah? So that is all the British... I'm talking about numbers now, guys. If you think that the British military only has 19,000 infantry, that would mean that the whole of the British Army's infantry would have to be there. Because let's face it, guys, you're not going to send in Clarks, you're not going to send in Cooks, you need infantry to deal with this situation. So the whole of the British military would be there defending Pokrovsk, that town. Let's just look at the size of that town, guys, okay? It's a town. People are saying it's a city. It's not a city. It's a town. Okay? Now look at the front line. Look at that front line, ladies and gentlemen. That is the active front line. If you want to talk about Belarus, you've got all this border up here, guys. It's absolutely huge. People don't understand how big this situation is. If the fighting stopped tomorrow, and this is official, if the fighting stopped tomorrow, if everybody just said, yeah, okay, we've come to a peace agreement, yeah, whatever, everybody puts their weapons down, puts their hands up, they all hug, cuddle each other, oh, let's come and have a kutch. They all go, Raven, why don't you come and have a kutch with the boys? If the fighting stopped tomorrow, that would be, Ukraine would be the biggest demining operation the world has ever seen. So that's kind of the scope and scale of this conflict, guys. It's phenomenal. So what do we know so far? We just talked about the numbers there, guys. The numbers are absolutely phenomenal. 11,000 Russian troops have been concentrated around Pokrovsk in an attempt to surround the city. Speaking during a visit to a military hospital in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that both Pokrovsk and the embattled city of Kupiansk in Kharkiv Oblast were encircled. And this gets wild, guys. It gets wild. In a bizarre comment, especially considering the recent upticks in fatal... Hang on, let me... Sorry. Yes, considering the recent uptick in fatal attacks on journalists near the front line, Putin added, and this is wild, that Russian forces would be prepared to have a ceasefire in the respective areas for a few hours so that Ukrainian and foreign journalists could get in, speak to the Ukrainian soldiers, and confirm for themselves the state that the surrounded forces are in. This is wild, guys. Okay, right now, as we sat here, wherever you are in the world, right now, in those mud fields in Ukraine, in and around that area, there's heavy machine gun fire, there's tanks, there's artillery, there's buildings being demolished. It's up, you know, we're talking about World War II scenes here. World War II scenes, but with drones. You know, so the Russian, anyway, so Vladimir Putin said he's going to have a ceasefire for a few hours so the world's so the world's press can get in and confirm for themselves the state that these guys, you know, the state that these that the forces are in. Ukrainian commanders reports, as well as open source data, shows that Putin's claim of a complete encirclement is still far from a reality, but the situation is highly dynamic and it's deteriorating. So when he says, I think what Putin means by when they're encircled, they mean they've got the first bits of the pincer. And when you're fighting someone, you want them to run off. If you're the best example is if you're fighting in a built-up area and you are assaulting a building, you don't want to fight those people. You want those people to you want those people to run away. That is what you want those people to do. So it makes no sense. And if you don't give people the opportunity to run away, they will fight. So a good example of this is if you enter a building from the ground floor, those people are going to run upstairs. If they run upstairs, they've got nowhere else to go. You know, they've got nowhere else to go. So they will fight till the death. You don't want that. You want those people to run off. It's better if they run off. You know, it's just better for everyone. They get to live. You get to live. Everyone gets to live. Everyone's good if they run off. Now, the same goes with this town of Pokrovsk. If you guys remember from the map, you know, the Russians have come in from the north. They've come in from the south. And they've left that main supply route. They've left that main road open. So what that would do is that would give the Ukrainians the opportunity to flee. As soon as they close that road, it's game over. Those guys are going to fight to the death, and it's going to be carnage for everyone. So that's why I think they're doing it. Right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let me get some comments on the chat. You guys have been throwing up comments on the chat. Right, let me get some. Philip Gray is saying, totally agree with you, Sean, but if they launched a massive offensive, specialized forces are going to be concentrated. Ukraine is massive, so they would have to use conventional forces. Yeah, I think I literally covered that in what I said previously. Lisa Jane is saying, I can see UK conscripts being signed up very soon. I don't see I don't see it on the cards right now. Like right now, as we are, a few things have to happen, but I don't see it right now. Dear SAS, sort this shit out now. Guys, this is not a special forces war. This is not a special forces war. It is not. If you guys think of the front line I just showed you, 11,000 Russian troops have been concentrated in that area. The whole British special forces like SAS, SBS, SRR, support arms, you're probably looking at 2,000. Maybe 2,000. So this is not a special forces war, guys. I promise you, this is not a special forces war. Afghanistan, Iraq was absolutely a special forces war. The war this is a Green Army war. This is a section commanders war. This is an artillery war. This is a green war, guys. A real war. Moscow says it will only hold peace talks with Japan if it ends anti-Russian stance. I don't know how are they I don't understand that, Googlino. Can you give more context? AG Aesthetics is saying, Raven, would you conscript if it came to it and required with your military background you'd be a key asset? Well, I think conscript means you don't have any choice. I think yeah. I probably wouldn't be, because I still work with the military. So I probably wouldn't be the best guy to do that. Although, look, guys, I'd be happy to go in. I'd be happy to say to the Ukrainians on the 5th day at dawn, look to the east, look to the west, actually, and come riding in on horseback or like quad bikes or something cool. I don't think that the military really need me. I think they've got their own guys. They've got their own people in place, I would much rather I think I'd be in a better position doing something with soldiers and preparing them to go out there. Philip Gray is saying the terrain is huge. People don't understand. Yeah, guys, look, you don't. Yeah. Philip Gray, just out of context, have you been to Ukraine or have you spent time in Eastern Europe? So if you live in the United Kingdom, think about a farmer's field, all right? Think about a farmer's field. Like, how big is that farmer's field? Like, what are you contextualizing now as a farmer's field? The fields in Ukraine, like the corn, the wheat, sunflowers, they go over the horizon. They're like 30, 50, maybe 100x what the fields are in the United Kingdom. The whole country is huge, guys. It's rolling countryside all over. It's absolutely huge. Michael, I'm going to have to jump up again. Michael is saying, triceps. If you can do one, you can do two. Russia and Ukraine in a bloody war that most in the UK barely know about. Our 19,000 or so frontline troops, the ones who would fight to take or hold ground, are too few to hold. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely too few. Right, I'm just going to jump to the bottom. Oh, hang on a minute. What's Footlong Bong saying? Footlong Bong was saying something. Right, I can't find that. Right, let's continue with this article, guys, and then I will jump back to the chat. So, excuse me. In a grim development, Russian forces managed to plant the Russian flag on the entrance at the western edge of Pokrovsk. That was today, guys. That is like, the Russians are planting flags at the entrance to Pokrovsk. Remember, the western end is the end that the guys are going to have to retreat through. If you guys know anything about warfare, I don't know how much you guys know about warfare. What happens is when there's an ensieged city, town, settlement, whatever, when there's and when it's ensieged, you get the real casualties on the retreat, because what happens is people get told, fight, hold on, fight. And then what happens is people are like, yeah, we're done. And then people just get on that road and flee for their lives. Literally, they flee for their lives. So then what the bad guys do, or the opposing side, depending on which way you guys look at this, what the bad guys would do then is they just artillery, mortars, strafing runs with, what is it, Hind? What's the new one? Is it Hind 26? Strafing runs with attack helicopters. That's when the casualties happen, guys. Look, this could have actually, let me just refresh this screen, because this could have actually happened right now, guys. Let me just refresh this. Let me look. News. Okay, we've got 4 hours ago. Yeah, there's no real updates. Street battles. Oh, this is street battles rage in Pokrovsk after Russian troops enter the stronghold. And look, ladies and gentlemen, you know, when people come on the chat, you know, when people come on the chat and they talk about, you know, they talk about the Russians being defeated. The ground says it all. You know, it's like somebody saying, it's like I was talking to somebody earlier on today. They were saying that a pub down the road was rubbish. I said, "What do you mean it's rubbish?" And this person was saying to me, he said, "Oh, you go in there. There's nowhere to sit. There's nowhere to you know, the beer's expensive. You sit on these horrible little chairs. The tables are rubbish. There's no decoration on the walls." I said, "Okay, right. Why is it rubbish?" She said, "Oh, it's just rubbish." I said, "Is there people always in there?" Yeah, it's always rammed. You can never get to the bar. Okay, so what do you mean by rubbish? So, you know, the same thing applies. People can say that the Russians are losing all they like. People can say, you know, people can say that the Russian economy is about to collapse, which has been about to collapse for a long time. But the reality is, I think the Russian economy grew something like, was it 4.2% last quarter or something? So that's all well and good. You know, you can say the Russian economy is about to collapse and it's ready to collapse. The numbers don't reflect the rhetoric. Philip Gray is saying, oh, hang on a minute. Donna is saying emergency meeting in the Trump emergency meeting in the next half hour. That could actually be a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. Guys, can you keep me updated on that? Philip Gray is saying, I've seen footage of it, Sean. It's mad. It's trench warfare with drones like World War. Yeah, it is, guys. It's mad. Right now, as I'm giving this live stream, there are young men and women out on the front line. You know, young men out on the front line in trenches, covered in mud, freezing cold. You know, freezing cold. And there's also politicians talking, having vodka, having little meetings. Right, guys, can everybody keep me informed? All right, let me try and get this up here. Let me get this up. Emergency. I remember the last time we did an emergency Trump meeting. Hang on, 14 minutes ago. No. I can't. It might be something about the tariffs. Might be something about the tariffs. I'm looking at an article from refugee admissions. Wow, Jesus. So the Americans have only America has only taken in 7,500 refugees. Wow. And a lot of those were from South Africa. Wow. Right. Oh, food stamps. Right. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Listen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Right. Okay. This may what it is. Okay. So there is a situation going on. And let me know if you know what I'm talking about, because I'm not 100% dialed in on this. If there's anybody watching from the United States, please correct me if I'm wrong. So in America, you get something called an EBT card, which means electronic. I think it's called an electronic benefits transfer. EBT card, yeah. So these EBT cards, basically, you can go to certain stores, Walmart, I don't know, and you can get food. It's kind of like a credit card to get these. Look, guys, and let me be clear. I don't know the ins and outs of this. I may be wrong. So Donald Trump's come out and he said, right, we're cancelling these. We're going to cancel these. So what a lot of ladies have been saying in America is, on the 1st of November, when these cards are cancelled, I think at 6:30, it's 6:30 in the evening, everybody's going to go to the supermarket, everybody's going to fill their trolleys, and everybody's just going to run out with their trolleys, and they're just going to have the mass food theft. So I'm like, brings me right back. And it brings me way back to some things I've said previously about how Western European culture is a culture of expansion. Oh, hang on a minute, guys. Hang on, guys. Right. Right, I can't get anything. I don't know where I'm looking here. Yeah, I'm searching. I'm getting so many hits, Donna. ET now. No, absolutely nothing. Let me try Trump. Right, look, guys, I'm gonna have. Let me continue with this, and then let me continue with this, and I'll. If there's any updates, I'll ET live on YouTube, Sean. Right, what's ET? Hang on, right, right. Let me find ET on YouTube. It's giving me the movie ET. Okay, nothing. Yeah, I'm getting nothing, guys. I don't want to spend like too much time looking for things on. Right, let me just try and find this, guys. Okay. Let me try. Let me search X. Let me search X. I'm totally at a loss here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm totally at a loss. Maybe it's being suppressed. I don't know. Look, what I will say is from what you guys are telling me, okay, what we know is the United States have the biggest air force. Yeah, I'm here. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting the 80s movie E.T. So what we know is the United States have the, the United States have the... Right, okay, right. Try searching. E.T. now breaking news. Right, okay. Ah, maybe this is it. Let's not listen to the ads. I'll do that. I'll skip them. And as soon as I've skipped those ads, guys, I will jump on. Right, okay, I've got it.
Problem that we were given. Inflation, I've already taken care of. Economically, the country is the strongest it's ever been. Thank God for tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we'd be a third world nation. But thank God for tariffs. We're the richest nation in the world now because of tariffs. And we're able to economically protect ourselves. And we're able to really protect ourselves from a national security, situation. But we have cartels that, somebody came up with the word cartel. I won't tell you who that person was, but you got a lot of bad people in the cartels. And you could look at a country like Mexico, and I really respect the president. I really respect a lot of the people over there, but a lot of the leadership. But they are in fear in their own country because those cartels are running those countries.
Okay, guys, look, I'll can somebody keep me informed if that changes? I don't want to, I don't want to listen to a question and answer from Donald Trump. What I will say is I'll keep that running in the background, guys, okay? And somebody let me know if there's any update. What I will say, what Donald Trump is saying there, and he's absolutely right. He is 100% right. The taxes do not help anyone. Taxes don't help anyone. Look, guys, when we're talking about economics, and I will jump back to Ukraine in a second, when we're talking about economics, the only way that you get rich, the only way that I get rich, the only way that a country gets rich is if we take money off another country. That is it. There's no caveat to that. There's no other way around it. There's no, but if we raise this tax and we pay this benefit and we do, it's all bullshit. The only way that we get, the only way that we get richer as a country is we take another country's money. Now, that doesn't, I'm not talking about forcefully. I'm talking about you provide better goods and a better service. Now, how do we provide better goods and better services in the United Kingdom if we're destroying our goods and service markets by taxing them? Doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. I know this. I would speculate that people behind the scenes in government know this. So why are they not doing that? Oh, hang on a minute. Donald Trump live. Trump's urgent call triggers max alert. Nation on standby by the beard of Zeus. Right, we're going to have to get to the bottom of this. Okay. Donald Trump live. Okay, right. Okay. What I think they're talking about. Okay, right. I think that's a non-headline, actually. What I think they're talking about there is that's just a headline grabber, guys. What they're talking about there is the announcement, not the the announcement that he's making an announcement has caused maximum alert, not the content of the alert. Sorry, if that makes sense. Hang on a minute. Are we right? What's going on here? What's going on? Right. The White House has reportedly gone on high alert after an urgent call from Donald Trump, triggering intense speculation about a national. Right. I'm not getting this, guys. Right. Let's get this. Right. I'm watching the. Right. Let's get it back on. Right, listen, guys. I don't think we're going to war. The way these guys are talking, I don't think there's going to be a global conflict. I don't think there's going to be a global conflict or a massive military movement right now. They're talking about a ballroom. All right, so let's just put things into context, guys. All right, the emergency meeting. Everybody's, emergency meeting. They're talking about a ballroom. If there was some bombs going down, Pete Hegseth would be talking. Donald Trump would be talking about real bad guys in Venezuela. We gotta take out those. We got to take those guys out. We got to drop them down. It's going to be real bad. It's going to be real. He'd be talking like that. They're talking about a ballroom, guys. And listen, and I have no doubt that's going to be the most beautiful ballroom the world has ever seen. I would love to do the shimmy shimmy and the funky chicken in that ballroom. I would. And I can pretty much guarantee that Pete Hegseth loves a beer. I've looked at him and I'm like, yeah, I know your type. You definitely love a beer, mate. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back on track. I believe we are well, do you know what? I don't believe this. We are hours away from an absolute collapse in Ukraine. I'm talking about the city of, there's not a city, it's a town of Pokrovsk, which is in, it's in the Donetsk region. Now, that town itself is a key location. It's a key location because of everything that runs off it. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are sat hours away. And it may be, like I said, it may happen while we're on the live stream. It may happen tomorrow morning. I don't know, but it's definitely going to fall. And for everybody that's saying that the Russians can't hold and the Russians, the Russians are about to collapse, that's all well and good. They keep pushing forwards. They keep taking ground. And every inch, every foot, every meter, every mile that they move forwards in Ukraine, that means that they are moving forward closer towards Europe. And at the pace they're going right now, let's get the war map up, guys. Let me just get hang on, let me do something real quick. I need to prep the map and then I'll give me a second, guys. Let me prep this map. Okay, so right, I'll prep it and I'll share it. So I'm gonna share with you guys now the again, I'm going to share with you guys the Ukrainian war map. But what I've done now is I've come out a little bit further on the perspective. So if you guys remember, this area here is Pokrovsk. You've got Kramatorsk, you've got Dnipro, you've got Zaporizhia. Obviously, a heavy steel industry, nuclear power plant. This was the ground on the 22nd of September. I thought I stopped it before then, but whatever. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to fast forward. And I did this before, but I was just focusing on this area of Pokrovsk. So this was like just over a month ago. So people have been saying, and I could keep going back and you would see the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward this and I'm going to show you guys how much ground the Russians are taking every day. Now, again, it's not massive leaps. It's not massive jumps. What it is is a concerted drive, effort, move forwards. So what I want you guys to do is look how much ground the Russians are taking, and then try and look how much ground's going the other way, as in how much ground the Ukrainians have taken back. And you'll see pretty quickly how much the Russians have actually absolutely. So this is the Russians in absolute collapse. Again, there's no big movements. There's no big drive forwards. There's no big 20 kilometers here. But what you do have is small, constant gains. And at that pace that the Russians are moving, it's inevitable that they reach the borders of Europe at some point. Now, as soon as that town of Pokrovsk has... Oh, have I stopped? Am I still sharing this? No, I'm not. As soon as that town of Pokrovsk has gone, guys, there's literally nothing to stop the Russians. The only thing that will be slowing the Russians down is the ground. That will be the only thing that's slowing the Russians down. It really will, guys. Amir Cricket is saying, I expect to see few steps that yet happened, or else I know the script will end badly for them. Can you give more context in that? I don't know what that was in. Oh, hang on. I think, sorry. Sean, I don't think you can talk like you passed the storm. I expect a few steps to happen yet. Look, guys, you know, I don't see anything stopping the Ukrainians need more men. That's the reality. You can give them all the kit and equipment. You can give them everything they want. They need more men. They really do need more men, guys. Okay. Oh, and then Amir saying, UK liberate when? Look, when we're talking about civil war in the United Kingdom, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast. You know, it really is going to happen. It really is going to happen fast. These things always happen fast. You have nothing, and then all of a sudden, it's like, you know, I think the first analogy, not the first, but one of my early analogies, when Keir Starmer came down, absolutely draconian, absolutely draconian on the protesters last year. Let's just run by a few of my favorites. Lucy Conley, I think it was 2 years, 6 months in jail for a tweet. We had a man shouting at a dog, and I think he got 20 months in jail for shouting at a dog. And look, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the first to admit, don't shout at a dog. You're a dick. Like, why are you doing that, right? Well, mate, why are you shouting at a dog? You're a bit weird, whatever, right? But it's not 20 months in jail. It's not. Well, you know what, guys? In my opinion, and I'm not a legal expert, but in my opinion, it's not 20 months in jail for shouting at a dog. Okay, so those are two cases you guys can go and look at. And that's absolutely fine. Then we got the guy, Ricky Jones, saying, we should cut their throats and get rid of them. He didn't spend any time in jail because not guilty. Not guilty. He's fine. That is totally fine. Saying you want to cut somebody's throat is a less of a crime than shouting at a dog. That's the reality. And let's not forget, guys, my favorite, the two guys fresh back off their trip from Pakistan, who had fisticuffs in Manchester Airport. They are never look, I don't think they're ever going to see the inside of a prison cell. So again, if you're an alien and you're looking down on the United Kingdom, if you shout at a dog, it's a worse crime than breaking a policewoman's nose and having a punch up with armed police officers. Tell me I'm wrong, guys. Tell me I'm wrong. Philip Gray is saying, yes, it's coming. I don't want civil war because I've seen them and it's just beyond discretion. discretion. What's that word mean? But I think it's inevitable. It is, guys. It is. So this brings me back to one of my going back quite. One of my early analogies was what Keir Starmer had done by sending these people to prison. He just put a tight. Oh, hang on. What Keir Starmer had done, he just put a really heavy, tight lid on a boiling pot. And you know what, guys? You need to let that steam simmer, because what happens? Excuse me. What happens if you don't let that pot simmer and you keep that heat on? Do you know what? I'd say this has happened. Keir Starmer has put a big, heavy lid and he's bolted that shut and he's turned the heat up. That's what's happening in the United Kingdom, and it's going to explode. So you're looking at the pot, and the pot just seems to be intact right now, but it's simmering. Inside that pot, the fuel is going. We've got Afghans running stabby, stabby, rammy, rammy. We have got migrants going rapey, rapey all over the United Kingdom, guys. Every day you see. Do you know what? Let me just have a look here. Let me just do breaking news UK. It'll actually, you know, I think it's actually going to be. Let's see what comes up. No, so we've got the Hadush. We've got Hadush. So look, guys, listen. I just slightly off topic. Is it just me? Am I the only one noticing this? Right? You know, Hadush. He committed a crime, right? Am I the only one noticing this? That when he went back to Eritrea, he didn't seem to be in custody. He just seemed to be sent back on a plane. Guys, am I the only one noticing that? Am I the only one noticing that? But yeah, it is coming, guys. It is coming. Amir Cricket is saying Iran 41-7. Yeah, look, guys, yeah. So Amir Cricket is if you guys look, depending what sources you look at, when the current Iranian regime took power, I think it was 79, but in 88. Let me Google this. I need to get this. I think this was 88, guys. I'm pretty sure this was 88. Yeah. So when the Iranian regime, which is in there now, when they took power, they rounded up anybody, any opposition, anybody that was an opposition. So they rounded them up, and then they executed them. You don't think I'm telling the truth? Go look at Wikipedia, guys. Go and look at Wikipedia. So if you want to see what's coming to the United Kingdom, I promise you guys, and it looks like right now we've got this unholy alliance. Sorry, let me. I'm going to take your post down, Amir Cricket, because he's covering my beautiful face. We have got this unholy alliance between the liberals and the Muslims, and whether you support that, that's totally on you. But what we know from history, what we know from history in Iran in 1988, the Iranian regime rounded up all their political opponents in 1988, and they executed them. And by executed, I mean they didn't give them £500 and send them home. Now, the numbers here, guys, are phenomenal. High-end estimates are that the Iranian regime, of course, this was all covered up. High-end estimates were 30,000 political prisoners were massacred. or executed, whatever you wanna call it. So now we have, and I keep saying this, guys, the first casualties are going to be the Liberals, and you're going to see that really quickly in the United Kingdom. You're going to see that real quick in the United Kingdom, whereby you've got these people. You've got these people, and they're banging the drums. I don't know. They're banging the drums, and they're talking about I don't know. We're the Liberals. We love you. You can do it. So can we. And they've all got the blue hair. We saw it the other day, and it was terrifying. The guys on the protest, and they're walking down the street, and he said, like, there's no need for that, mate. We're on the same side. And they're like, no, we're not. We are going to they are going to be eaten. They are going to literally be eaten. And I don't mean that metaphorically. They're going to be eaten. Trump's very big announcement talking about nukes. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of talk in the air about nuclear weapons. There's a lot of talk in the air about Donald Trump renovating their nuclear weapons, refurbishing them. I think it's going to be, I think what's going to happen is I'm not convinced that they're going to do any testing. I'm not convinced they're going to do any testing, guys. Until they do testing, I'm going to stick with what I've always said. I don't think there's going to be a nuclear weapon used in war. I may be wrong. What I've also said is if we do see, if a nuclear weapon is ever going to be used, you're going to see both sides testing their capability. Donald Trump will have the United States will have a nuclear test, and I'll be like, right, okay, guys, I was wrong. All bets are off now. All bets are off. I'll hold my hands up, and then you'll see the Russians test one, and then the Americans will test one. They're not doing that to rattle the saber, although they are rattling the saber. They're doing that to test their own equipment because they're not sure if those things are going to be used. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to weigh on. That's what I'm going to weigh on. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. I am going to be back on tomorrow morning. If you're on right now, you guys have not done so already, can you guys please do me a real big favor? Like, comment, subscribe, hit those bell notifications. All those things really help me out, guys. They do. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at... What time? I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 10. I think I need a thumbnail or something. Can somebody put in the chat how the sound quality was and how the picture was? Because I had a bit of a mess around today because I know it wasn't that good this morning. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, guys. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will be back on at 10 tomorrow. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.